Welcome to English Learning Podcast. My name is Fatima.
I am Najib.
Today we are discussing on best travel experience. Hey, so, what's the best travel experience you've ever had? I'm curious.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I've been to some amazing places, but if I had to pick, I'd say my trip to Japan was unbeatable. The combination of tradition and modernity was surreal. How about you?
Japan sounds incredible. For me, it was a trip to Iceland. It was like stepping into another world. Glaciers, volcanoes, waterfalls, just otherworldly. I felt like I was in a fantasy novel the whole time.
Iceland? Wow, that's been on my bucket list forever. I've seen pictures of the Blue Lagoon, the Northern Lights. They seem almost unreal. Did you see the lights when you were there?
I did. We chased them for a few nights because the weather was super unpredictable. But finally, on our third night, they appeared. It felt like magic. I couldn't believe how they danced across the sky. It's something I'll never forget.
That sounds incredible. Seeing the Northern Lights is one of those things that almost feels like a rite of passage for travelers, you know? I imagine you were freezing while you watched them.
Oh, absolutely freezing. But it was so worth it. What about Japan, though? Was it the temples and shrines that captivated you the most, or was it something else?
The temples and shrines were stunning, especially in places like Kyoto. Walking through Fushimi Inari Shrine with its thousands of red torii gates was something else. But what really stuck with me was how different each part of Japan felt. One day, I was in the futuristic hustle of Tokyo, and the next, I was hiking through bamboo forests and visiting centuries-old tea houses.
That must have been such a contrast. I've heard Tokyo can be overwhelming with all the lights and people. How did you handle the pace?
It was fast, no doubt, but I loved it. There's this energy about Tokyo. It's chaotic but in an organized way, if that makes sense. The food was amazing too. I'm a huge sushi fan, and having it there, fresh off the boat, was a dream. Plus, ramen. Real ramen is nothing like the instant stuff we get here. Did Iceland have any memorable food moments for you?
I'll admit Icelandic food was a bit of a challenge at first. There's a lot of lamb and seafood, which I love, but then they have some unique dishes like fermented shark, which is an acquired taste, to say the least. But the lamb stew was hearty and perfect after a day of trekking around in the cold. And the bread. There's this geothermal bread they bake underground. It's sweet, dense, and so good.
Fermented shark? That's brave. I'm not sure I could handle that. The geothermal bread, though, sounds amazing. I love how different cultures have these unique ways of cooking that are tied to the landscape. It must have felt pretty surreal eating bread baked by the earth itself.
Exactly. It made me think about how we're so used to ovens and modern cooking methods, but they found a way to work with the natural environment. And speaking of surreal, I have to ask, did you visit any of those crazy themed cafes in Japan? I've heard there are cat cafes, maid cafes, even robot cafes.
Oh, I definitely checked out a few. There was this owl cafe in Tokyo where you can sit and sip tea while owls just hang out around you. A bit strange, but fun. And I went to a robot restaurant, which was, let's just say, one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. There were giant robots, flashing lights, loud music, and it felt like a sensory overload in the best way possible.
That sounds wild. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that. It seems like Japan has this way of pushing the boundaries of normal, but in a fun, creative way. Did you get a chance to explore any of the natural landscapes, or was it mostly city life for you?
I did both. One of the highlights was visiting Mount Fuji. I didn't climb it, but even seeing it from afar was breathtaking. I also went to Hakone, which is famous for its hot springs. Sitting in an onsen with a view of the mountains and the lake, that was pure bliss. And of course, I had to check out the bamboo forest in Arashiyama. It's like stepping into another dimension, so serene and otherworldly.
That sounds so peaceful. I think that's the perfect balance. You get the excitement of the city, but also moments of calm in nature. Iceland was like that too. One minute I'd be in the middle of Reykjavik, and the next I'd be standing at the edge of a glacier or walking along black sand beaches. It was a constant mix of adventure and tranquility.
I love that contrast in travel, where you can go from bustling streets to vast, empty landscapes in a matter of hours. In Japan, I felt that too, especially when I took the train from Tokyo to smaller towns. The pace would shift, and suddenly everything felt more relaxed. Did you experience any challenges while you were in Iceland?
Oh, definitely. The weather was unpredictable, which made planning tough. We had days where it would be sunny, then suddenly snowing or raining an hour later. It kept us on our toes. Also, driving around Iceland was an adventure in itself. The roads can be pretty desolate, and we'd go hours without seeing another car. But honestly, that added to the experience. It felt like we had the whole country to ourselves at times.
That sounds both thrilling and a little intimidating, but I get what you mean. Sometimes the isolation makes the journey even more special. It's like you're on a personal adventure. Did you have any moments where you felt like, wow, I'm really far from home?
So many. I think the moment that hit me the hardest was when we were hiking near a glacier, and it was just so silent. No cars, no planes, just the wind and the crunch of ice underfoot. It made me realize how vast and untouched parts of the world still are. It was humbling.
I know that feeling. For me, it was standing in a temple in Kyoto, surrounded by these towering trees, hearing nothing but the wind rustling through the leaves. It's like time slows down, and you get a sense of how small you are in the grand scheme of things. Travel has a way of doing that, doesn't it?
It really does. It puts everything into perspective. All the little stresses of daily life just melt away, and you're left with this sense of wonder and appreciation for the world. So if you could go back to Japan or explore a new destination, what would you choose?
That's tough. Japan still has so much I haven't seen, so I'd love to go back. But at the same time, there are so many other places calling to me, like New Zealand. I've heard the landscapes are just as jaw-dropping as Iceland, with mountains, beaches, and everything in between. What about you? Would you return to Iceland?
I would in a heartbeat. There's so much I didn't get to see. But if I had to pick somewhere new, I think I'd choose Patagonia in South America. I'm drawn to those wild, untamed landscapes. Plus, I've heard the hiking there is phenomenal.
Patagonia is another one of those dream destinations for me too. There's something about those vast, untouched places that really speaks to the adventurer in us, huh? It's like you're constantly chasing that next wow moment.
Exactly. It's that thrill of seeing something so different from anything you've experienced before. And I think that's the beauty of travel. It keeps you curious, always wanting to explore more.
I couldn't agree more. It's that sense of discovery, of stepping out of your comfort zone and experiencing something completely new. Whether it's a bustling city like Tokyo or the remote beauty of Iceland, every place has its own magic.
And the best part is, there's always more to see, more to experience. I love how travel reminds you that the world is so much bigger than your everyday life.
Yeah, it's humbling and exhilarating all at once. And it makes you appreciate both the places you visit and the place you come from. So here's to the next adventure, wherever it may be.
Definitely. Here's to endless exploration and unforgettable experiences.